Hello, eighth grade math students. Welcome to 6.5. This is a really fun activity where we are actually going to analyze and sketch graphs, and we're just going to make sense of the relationship between two quantities based on what we see in their graph. So it's kind of crazy. We are throwing the numbers out the window and we are just looking at what we can understand about these two quantities and how they're related based on the graph. First, we have some vocabulary that you need to understand. So if we had a distance time graph, and if you were zero distance away from home, you'd be at home, right? So you start somewhere away from home and you walk at a steady pace toward home. And over time, your distance from home decreases. So we would call this a negative slope. And you may notice this from our previous units and looking at slopes that had the same angle, we call them negative slopes. You might also say in this situation that you are headed toward home because your distance is decreasing over time. So when your distance from home is zero, you're at home. Yeehaw. So negative slope headed toward home. Now let's look at a couple different other ways to describe this. You also notice that this is, oops, not that one. This is a line, a straight line. So we would call this a linear slope. Okay. Now there are also going to be times that you are going to see distance time graphs and things are not going to be linear. So if you had a distance time graph that looked more like this, you might be noticing, wow, this is not a straight line. That's more of an arc. So we would call that nonlinear. Or we would also say there is variable speed. So think about it. You took off, you were excited to go somewhere, you started running really fast, but over time, your distance for the same amount of time slowed down. So you started off really fast and you were slowing down over time. And we would say this is a variable speed. So variable speed goes with a nonlinear portion of the graph. Okay, now we would also say, as you are looking at this part of the graph, your distance away from home is increasing with time. So you are going away from home. Now, you could also say that you were either speeding up or slowing down here. You're noticing how steep this is in this portion. You must have been running really fast, but the slope kind of flattens out a bit here. So we would say that you were slowing down over time. Now, if we look at this portion as you head home, are you heading home at a steady rate, a constant rate? You would say, sure. So maybe you are running at a constant pace on this way home. And then when you get to the bottom down here, you have arrived at home. Now let's look at a couple other graphs, and you're going to notice there are some flat spots here. So if we were to analyze a distance time graph that looked like this, you notice we have this big flat spot up here. And you're noticing that time is going by, but you are not gaining any distance from home, nor returning toward home. So we would say that is resting. You're just resting when it's flat like that. Now, one mistake people make is thinking of this as a hill. It's not a hill. It's really telling you how far away from home you are, and the steepness of the line tells you something about your speed. Now, if it's a straight line, we would say it's a constant speed or linear. If it's a curved line, it's nonlinear. So you're either speeding up or slowing down. Now, I have a couple other interesting graphs to show you here as well. Okay, let's see if we can identify the different areas and what's going on here. So you started off, you left home, and your speed started out kind of slow, but it increased over time. This would be a nonlinear section. So you would say you had a variable speed and you were speeding up, weren't you? But then it goes flat. So what could be happening there? Time is passing, but your distance isn't getting any farther. So maybe you're resting. Maybe you're waiting for the bus. Maybe you're waiting for a friend. And then that friend comes and arrives, and you have this new section of the graph. And you might say you were walking quickly at a constant pace during this portion of the graph. And you might also notice that you're still going away from home And you could describe that you have a positive slope at this portion of the graph. In fact, this has a positive slope, this has a slope of 0, and this is a nonlinear slope. So we're not going to talk quite about that yet, but we would say that at this portion of the graph where it's nonlinear, you had a variable speed. You were speeding up. Now, you notice that you went away from home, and once your slope starts turning negative, you are heading toward home. So as soon as you are headed toward home, you have a negative slope. Now, you're heading home at a constant speed, but then you must stop somewhere. Maybe you're sit down and eat a bag of chips. I don't know. And then you realize, oh no, it's almost dinner time. So you speed up and run at a constant speed. Maybe for this last part of the graph, you are running at a constant pace to get home. So you can kind of tell a story just looking at this graph and applying what you know about linear and nonlinear um, portions of the graph, whether you have a constant speed or a variable speed, or no speed here. You can also tell positive slope means you're going away from home, negative slope means you're returning toward home. Okay? So, those are all the things you're going to need to know because you are going to be telling a story. You guys have some activities that are coming up, and you're going to use this knowledge about all of the vocabulary that we've just introduced to complete some stories and match some data to explain what may be going on in a particular situation. And you can come up with a far fetched explanation for what was going on. But I do want to remind you that you're not just climbing a hill that looks like this. This is really telling you your distance over time, or in essence, your speed. So use everything you know about nonlinear and linear portions of the graph, positive and negative slopes, and how far really you are away from home. So this is going to be a really fun activity. You are going to have a chance to make some matches and then discuss your conclusions with friends. And your friends may have different opinions than you, and that's okay because there's some great dialogue that goes on as you guys compare your solutions and make adjustments based on the conversations that you have. We continue to learn from each other and grow as we try on new and different solutions for interpreting these fun distance and time graphs. So, really, what we're doing is we're analyzing and sketching graphs, which is hugely valuable as you step into science, as you look at different math problems. I want you to be able to wrap your mind around the relationship between these two quantities just by looking at the shape of the graph and understanding all the nuances of how these two quantities are related based on the slope, the linear or nonlinear nature of the graph, and what it is telling us about the relationship between these two quantities. So, if you have not picked up your packet at Val or printed out your work for this upcoming week, please go ahead and do that. You are going to need to cut them up and have them ready for our Thursday class. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.